Delve into one book daily, and today we're diving into The Great Gatsby. Haven't you ever chased a distant goal with all your might, treating it as the only light in your life, only to find that behind the light lies nothing but emptiness? Even the act of chasing itself becomes an insignificant bubble in others' eyes. You cling to an obsession, thinking it's staying true to your original aspiration, but in reality, you're trapped in the memories and fantasies you've woven, isolated and helpless in the tide of the times. This novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald, hailed as the epic of the Jazz Age, has no grand heroic narrative. Instead, it uses the magnificent yet sorrowful downfall of a dream to express the hidden melancholy in every dream chaser's heart. The protagonist, J. Gatsby, was never an elite in the traditional sense. Born into a poor farming family in the American Midwest, his parents were ordinary people. This background made him deeply afraid of poverty from an early age and gave him an almost obsessive longing for the glamour of high society. As a young man, he swore to escape the mark of his family of origin and become someone admired by others. I can't be James Gatz forever. I will be J. Gatsby, a new, dazzling existence. This was his inner declaration and the starting point of his lifelong pursuit. This desire to reconstruct his identity hides a young man's resistance to the injustice of fate from the lower class, as well as his simplest yet most utilitarian understanding of success. Wealth and status are the only ways to escape mediocrity. In his youth, Gatsby met Daisy in the military camp. This wealthy, beautiful girl was like a bright light illuminating his dark world. Daisy's elegance, laziness, and the high society life she represented precisely struck a chord with Gatsby's longing. Her voice is full of money, Gatsby recalled with obsession years later. In his eyes, Daisy was not an independent individual, but the embodiment of his dream. Possessing Daisy meant he had truly entered the world he craved and redeemed his past life. But he had nothing then, unable to give Daisy a stable life. When World War I broke out, he was sent to Europe, and their relationship was temporarily put on hold by time and distance. Gatsby never forgot Daisy. He even made her existence the entire meaning of his struggle. On the European battlefield, he won military honors for his bravery, yet still felt it was not enough. He accidentally met the wealthy businessman Dan Cody, learned the etiquette and mannerisms of high society from him, and became more determined to accumulate wealth. After Cody's death, Gatsby did not inherit the expected fortune, but he refused to give up. He quickly amassed a huge fortune through a series of gray transactions and bought a luxurious villa in West Egg, Long Island. The villa was large enough to hold hundreds of people for parties and decorated extravagantly, yet Gatsby lived there in constant loneliness. I bought this house just because it's across the water from Daisy's house. He would often stand alone on his villa's dock late at night, staring at the green light on Daisy's dock in East Egg. To him, that light symbolized Daisy, the sustenance of all his hopes. To attract Daisy's attention, Gatsby held grand parties at his villa every week. The parties were packed with guests, with an endless supply of fine wine and food, and jazz echoing non-stop. Everyone indulged in carnival, enjoying everything Gatsby provided, yet few truly knew him. Some didn't even get his name right. Rumors spread among the guests. He was a German spy. He inherited a huge fortune. He had killed someone. Gatsby never defended himself. I don't care if they come or not. I don't care if they're happy. I just hope Daisy might hear the music here and walk in to see me someday. He held it all for one uncertain possibility, that Daisy might be drawn to the excitement and come to him voluntarily. The narrator, Nick Carraway, is Daisy's distant cousin and Gatsby's neighbor. Nick's appearance became the opportunity for Gatsby and Daisy to reconnect. When Gatsby nervously asked Nick to arrange a meeting with Daisy, the seemingly composed millionaire showed childlike tension and anxiety. "I'm afraid she won't come. I'm afraid when she comes, everything will be different from what I imagined." He even carefully decorated the villa in advance, filling it with Daisy's favorite flowers, and practiced his tone in front of the mirror repeatedly. This nervousness stemmed from his extreme cherishing of this relationship, as well as the inferiority deep in his heart. He always felt his wealth was unclean and his background unworthy of Daisy. At the moment of reuniting with Daisy, Gatsby instead became flustered and even clumsy. He knocked over books on the shelf in his nervousness, spoke incoherently, and lost all the poise he showed when entertaining guests. Daisy, the woman he had cherished for so many years, was initially surprised, but quickly embraced the joy of reunion. Their relationship heated up rapidly, and Gatsby was immersed in great happiness. He thought he had finally grasped the green light, that his years of waiting had finally paid off. "I knew it. Once we meet again, everything will go back to the past. We can be like before, never apart again." He stubbornly believed that with enough wealth, he could make up for past regrets and take Daisy away from her husband Tom. But there was an insurmountable gap between reality and fantasy. Daisy's husband, Tom Buchanan, was born into an old aristocratic family with an innate sense of superiority. He looked down on Gatsby not only because Gatsby's wealth came from questionable sources, but also because of his inherent lower-class temperament. The awkwardness of deliberately imitating high society, but never fully fitting in. The almost humble fawning over Daisy. Tom quickly sensed the relationship between Gatsby and Daisy and began targeting Gatsby everywhere. At a party, he publicly exposed the truth. Gatsby had made his fortune through illegal means like smuggling and bootlegging. "You think a few bucks make you a gentleman? Make you steal someone else's wife? You'll always be a nouveau riche, never part of our circle." Tom's words were like a sharp knife, piercing the dignity Gatsby had carefully maintained and shattering the dream he had woven. Gatsby tried to defend himself, shouting excitedly, "I love Daisy, and Daisy loves me. Our love is more real than yours and hers." But his defense seemed feeble in the face of Tom's dominance and Daisy's hesitation. At this moment, Daisy revealed her weakness and selfishness. She may have once had genuine feelings for Gatsby, may have grown tired of Tom's infidelity and indifference, but when forced to choose, she ultimately clung to the stability and class Tom represented. "I never loved you, Gatsby." Daisy's words were the final straw that broke Gatsby. In despair, an accident happened. While driving Gatsby's car, Daisy accidentally hit and killed Myrtle, Tom's mistress. When Gatsby learned of this, his first thought was not his own situation, but worrying about Daisy being implicated. "I was driving the car. It has nothing to do with Daisy." He took full responsibility voluntarily, even preparing to take the blame for Daisy. He waited outside Daisy's house all night, just to confirm she was safe and still needed him. "As long as she needs me, I'll be here." This was his last obsession with Daisy, his final adherence to his dream. He thought his devotion would move Daisy somehow, but he didn't know that Daisy had already quietly left Long Island with Tom's persuasion, not leaving him a single goodbye. Myrtle's husband, George, overwhelmed by grief and anger, found Gatsby through clues, mistakenly believing he was his wife's lover and the one who killed her. One morning, George broke into Gatsby's villa and shot him by the swimming pool before committing suicide. The millionaire, once surrounded by crowds at parties, the dream chaser who had fought so hard for his aspirations, finally fell in the villa he had carefully built, dying silently. After Gatsby's death, Nick tried to hold a decent funeral for him, but all the guests who had indulged in his parties and accepted his countless favors made excuses and refused to come. Only Nick, Gatsby's father, and a small figure Gatsby had once helped, attended the desolate funeral. The former glitz and excitement eventually faded like smoke, leaving only endless sorrow and desolation. Contrasts are woven into every corner of the story. The more luxurious Gatsby's villa, the lonelier his heart. The more lively his parties, the colder his funeral. His deep affection for Daisy only highlights her selfishness and indifference. His unwavering dedication to his dream only underscores its emptiness. The geographical division between East Egg and West Egg is even a metaphor for class. East Egg is home to old aristocrats like Tom and Daisy, whose wealth and status are inherited, with arrogance and prejudice in their bones. West Egg is where nouveau riche like Gatsby live, struggling to accumulate wealth to cross the class divide, only to be blocked by invisible barriers. The idealized love versus the utilitarian reality, the longing for acceptance versus the constant rejection, the grand possession versus the sudden loss. These contrasts interweave to form Gatsby's sorrowful yet touching life. Gatsby's death is not just a personal tragedy, but a tragedy of the entire jazz age, and a microcosm of the rise and fall of the American dream. What he chased all his life was never Daisy herself, but the idealized success and happiness she represented. He firmly believed that as long as he accumulated enough wealth through hard work, he could rewrite his fate and have everything he wanted. This worship of wealth and obsession with success were the prevalent mentality in American society at that time. After World War I, the American economy developed by leaps and bounds, and people indulged in the carnival of material hedonism, thinking that working hard to make money would realize the so-called American dream. Yet they ignored the construction of the spiritual world and the most sincere human emotions, ultimately left with only endless emptiness after the glitz faded. The root of Gatsby's tragedy lies in placing his dream on the wrong person and his narrow understanding of success. He thought wealth could buy love, cross class boundaries, and make up for past regrets, not realizing that some things can never be measured by wealth. Daisy's weakness and selfishness, Tom's arrogance and cruelty, the guest's hypocrisy and indifference, all reveal the hypocrisy and decay of high society, making Gatsby's dream seem particularly ridiculous and sad. He lived in the fantasy he wove, refusing to face reality. Even until his last moment, he still believed Daisy would come back for him, clinging to that unrealistic dream. Today, Gatsby's story still offers profound enlightenment. Don't we often fall into the same predicament? We chase fame, status, and wealth, treating them as the ultimate goals of life, rushing around every day, yet rarely stopping to think if these things can truly bring us happiness. We disguise ourselves on social media, pretending to be glamorous, craving others' recognition and praise, yet feeling extremely lonely late at night. We desperately cater to others' expectations, living as the successful person others want, only to gradually lose ourselves. Like Gatsby, we cling to an illusory green light, thinking it's hope, not realizing that true happiness never comes from external pursuit, but from inner exploration. Gatsby's greatness does not lie in how much wealth he accumulated or how many grand parties he held, but in his unwavering dedication to his dream and the purity of his love in an era of universal utilitarianism and hypocrisy. His dream may have been empty, his pursuit blind, but the fearless passion and perseverance in him are enough to move everyone. He teaches us that even if a dream finally shatters and the chase is full of hardships, the courage to strive for it with all your might is a precious treasure in itself. At the same time, Gatsby's story reminds us to face reality bravely and not live in fantasy. We can have dreams, but we cannot use them as an excuse to escape reality. We can pursue beauty, but we cannot turn a blind eye to the complexity of human nature and the cruelty of reality. True maturity is not clinging to an unrealistic obsession, but still loving life after recognizing its truth. We must learn to accept our imperfections and the impermanence of fate, seeking happiness in ordinary life instead of blindly chasing illusory things. Gatsby's green light has gone out, but perhaps each of us has such a light in our hearts. It may be an unfulfilled dream, a hidden regret, or an expectation for the future. The Great Gatsby does not give us a happy ending, but in this sorrowful downfall of a dream, it lets us understand the complexity of human nature, the limitations of the times, and the meaning of perseverance and letting go. It tells us that the meaning of life lies not in the result, but in the process. The true essence of happiness lies not in how much we possess, but in knowing how to cherish. No summary can replace the original work. A good book is worth reading page by page. I'm Paper Campfire. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to our next encounter.